They set up the paralyzed girl as a joke on a blind date, until the single dad CEO took her hand and the restaurant fell silent as James Thornton, CEO of Horizon Technologies and one of the city's most eligible bachelors, knelt beside Olivia's wheelchair. "They thought this was a joke," he said, his voice carrying across the hushed dining room, "but meeting you might be the most fortunate accident of my life." As he gently took her hand, Olivia's eyes widened in disbelief. Neither of them could have imagined that a cruel prank would lead to this moment, or that their lives were about to change forever. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories about finding love and dignity in unexpected places. Olivia Chen had learned to expect very little from life. At 28, she had grown accustomed to the pitying glances, the awkward conversations, and the way people's eyes would drift to her wheelchair before meeting her gaze. It had been 6 years since the car accident that had left her paralyzed from the waist down, 6 years of rebuilding her life piece by painful piece. "You need to get out more," her roommate Megan insisted one Friday evening as Olivia worked on her laptop. As a freelance graphic designer, Olivia had built a comfortable life for herself, comfortable, but solitary. "You can't just hide in your work forever." "I'm not hiding," Olivia replied without looking up. "I'm meeting a deadline." Megan flopped dramatically onto the couch beside Olivia's wheelchair. "When was the last time you went on a date?" The question hung in the air. Olivia's fingers paused over her keyboard. "You know why I don't date." The memory of her last attempt at romance still stung. 3 years ago, she had met someone online. They had talked for weeks, and he had seemed so understanding about her disability. But when they finally met in person, his expression had shifted from interest to discomfort within seconds. He had stayed for one drink, made a flimsy excuse, and never contacted her again. "Not everyone is like that jerk," Megan said softly, reading Olivia's thoughts. "No, some are worse," Olivia replied with a wry smile. "They either see me as some inspirational story to make themselves feel better or as a burden they're not willing to take on. Either way, I'm not a person to them, I'm a wheelchair." Megan was quiet for a moment. "What if I set you up with someone? Someone I know personally?" Olivia laughed. "Who do you have in mind? Your cousin with the Star Wars obsession?" "No, someone from work," Megan said, her eyes lighting up. "He's new to the marketing department. Smart, funny, and seriously good-looking." "And does this paragon of virtue know about me?" Olivia asked, her voice carefully neutral. Megan hesitated. "I'll tell him you use a wheelchair. If he has a problem with that, then he's not worth your time anyway." Olivia sighed, knowing her friend meant well. "Fine. One dinner. But when it inevitably crashes and burns, you owe me a pint of chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream." "Deal." Megan squealed, already reaching for her phone. "You won't regret this." But as Olivia would soon discover, regret was exactly what awaited her. Across town, in a spacious penthouse apartment, James Thornton was trying to coax his 7-year-old daughter into bed. "Just one more story, Daddy," Lily pleaded, her blue eyes, so like her mother's, wide and imploring. "It's already past your bedtime, Princess," James said, smoothing her dark hair away from her forehead. "Grandma will be upset with me if she finds out I let you stay up this late." "Grandma doesn't have to know," Lily said with a conspiratorial whisper that made James laugh despite himself. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that gets daddies in trouble," he said, tucking the blanket around her. "Now close your eyes. I have an early meeting tomorrow." As CEO of Horizon Technologies, James's days were filled with meetings, decisions, and the constant pressure of leading a company that employed over 500 people. At 34, he had achieved more professional success than most people twice his age. But that success had come at a price. 3 years ago, his wife Charlotte had died suddenly from an undiagnosed heart condition, leaving him alone to raise their daughter. The grief had nearly broken him, but Lily needed him, so he had somehow found the strength to keep going. Day by day, they had built a new normal together. Dating had been the furthest thing from his mind until his mother had started dropping increasingly unsubtle hints. "Lily needs a mother," she would say during their weekly Sunday dinners. "And you're too young to spend the rest of your life alone." James would always deflect these comments, but lately, he had begun to wonder if his mother might be right. Not about Lily needing a mother, he was determined never to make his daughter feel that their family was incomplete, but about his own loneliness. The nights after Lily went to bed stretched long and empty before him. So when his assistant, Marcus, suggested a blind date with a friend of his girlfriend, James had surprised himself by agreeing. "Her name is Olivia," Marcus had told him. "She's a graphic designer. Smart, independent, beautiful." "Sounds too good to be true," James had replied skeptically. Marcus had hesitated then, and James had caught something in his expression, a flicker of something that, in retrospect, should have warned him. "There's just one thing," Marcus had said. "She uses a wheelchair." "That's not a problem, is it?" "Why would it be?" James had asked, genuinely puzzled by the question. Marcus had smiled, relief evident in his expression. "Great. Friday at 8, then. At Luciano's." What James didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that Marcus had never met Olivia. That this date was nothing more than a cruel joke concocted by Marcus and a few others from the marketing department, including Megan. "It'll be hilarious," Marcus had told them over drinks. "The boss and the crippled girl. Can you imagine his face when he realizes?" Megan had laughed along, not because she found it funny, but because she was new to the company and desperate to fit in. She had convinced herself that no real harm would be done. Olivia would never know the truth, and maybe, just maybe, something good might come of it. It was a rationalization that would come back to haunt her. Friday evening arrived, and Olivia found herself more nervous than she had anticipated. She had spent an hour choosing her outfit, a deep blue dress that complemented her dark eyes and fell gracefully over her legs. She had styled her long black hair in soft waves and applied makeup with more care than usual. "You look amazing," Megan assured her as she helped Olivia navigate the narrow hallway of their apartment. "Ryan is going to be blown away." "Ryan," Olivia repeated, committing the name to memory. "And you're sure he knows about?" She gestured to her wheelchair. "Absolutely," Megan said, avoiding Olivia's eyes. "I told him everything." The restaurant Megan had chosen was upscale but accessible, one of the few places in the city where Olivia could dine without having to worry about steps or narrow spaces between tables. As the hostess led them to a table near the back, Olivia felt the familiar weight of stairs following her. She had learned to ignore them, to focus instead on the conversation with Megan, who was chattering nervously about work. "He should be here any minute," Megan said, checking her phone for the third time in as many minutes. "I told him 8 o'clock sharp." At precisely 8, the restaurant door opened, and Olivia's heart skipped a beat. The man who entered was tall and impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he had run his hand through it just before entering, and his strong jawline was softened by the hint of a smile as he scanned the restaurant. "That's not Ryan," Olivia whispered to Megan. "Please tell me that's not Ryan." Megan's face had gone pale. "No, that's James Thornton. He's the CEO of Horizon. What is he doing here?" Before Olivia could respond, the hostess was leading James directly to their table. As he approached, his eyes met Olivia's, and she felt a jolt of something she couldn't quite name. "Olivia?" he asked, his voice deep and warm. Confusion washed over her. "I'm sorry, I think there's been a mistake. I'm waiting for someone named Ryan." James frowned, then turned to Megan. "Marcus said I was meeting someone named Olivia. Are you Olivia?" Megan shook her head, her expression stricken. "No, this is Olivia. I'm Megan." I work in your marketing department. Understanding began to dawn on James's face. And who is Ryan? The man from marketing who was supposed to meet me, Olivia said slowly, the pieces falling into place. She turned to Megan. What's going on? Megan's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it, and her face crumpled. Oh God, Liv, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I thought. Thought what? Olivia demanded, a cold dread settling in her stomach. It was supposed to be a joke, Megan whispered, tears filling her eyes. Marcus and the others, they set this up. There is no Ryan. They thought it would be funny to set you up with James, without either of you knowing the truth. The silence that followed was deafening. Olivia felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. She had been the butt of jokes before, the whispers in high school, the snickers when she struggled with a door or a steep ramp, but never something this elaborate, this deliberately cruel. I see, she said, her voice remarkably steady despite the humiliation burning through her. She began to back her wheelchair away from the table. Well, Mr. Thornton, I apologize for wasting your time. Megan, I'll find my own way home. Olivia, wait, James said, reaching out as if to stop her, then thinking better of it. Please don't leave. Why not? She asked, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. The joke's over. You can go back to your life, and I can go back to mine. Because I'd like to have dinner with you, he said simply. Olivia stared at him, searching his face for any sign of pity or, worse, amusement. But all she found was a quiet sincerity that made her hesitate. Why? She asked finally. Because I've been looking forward to this dinner all week, he replied. Because Marcus told me I was meeting someone intelligent and beautiful, and from what I can see, he wasn't lying about that. He glanced at Megan, who was watching the exchange with wide eyes. Even if his intentions were questionable. I should go, Megan said, standing abruptly. Olivia, I'm so sorry. I'll move out if you want me to. Just, please forgive me someday. As Megan hurried from the restaurant, Olivia found herself alone with James Thornton, CEO of Horizon Technologies and, apparently, her blind date. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. I won't be offended if you leave. James pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down. I'm exactly where I want to be, he said. Unless you'd prefer I leave? Olivia hesitated. Every instinct told her to flee, to protect herself from further humiliation. But something in James's steady gaze made her reconsider. One dinner, she said finally. But I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu. James laughed, a rich, genuine sound that eased some of the tension between them. I'd expect nothing less. As they studied their menus, Olivia couldn't help but steal glances at the man across from her. He was undeniably handsome, but it was the quiet confidence in his manner that she found most attractive. He didn't fidget or look uncomfortable, as so many people did when faced with her wheelchair. So, she said after they had ordered, tell me about yourself, James Thornton. Beyond being the CEO who was set up on a joke date with the girl in the wheelchair. If her bluntness surprised him, he didn't show it. I'm a single father, he said. My daughter, Lily, is 7. She's the center of my universe. And her mother? Olivia asked, then immediately regretted it. I'm sorry, that's too personal. No, it's a fair question, James said. Charlotte died 3 years ago. Heart condition we didn't know about. One day she was fine, the next. He trailed off, his eyes distant for a moment before refocusing on Olivia. It was sudden. I'm sorry, Olivia said softly, recognizing the grief that still lingered in his voice. That must have been incredibly difficult. James nodded. It was. Still is, sometimes. But Lily and I, we're doing okay. He took a sip of his water. What about you? What should I know about Olivia Chen beyond what I can see? The question was carefully phrased, acknowledging her disability without making it the focus. Olivia appreciated that more than she could express. I'm a graphic designer, she said. Freelance, which means I can work from anywhere with an internet connection. I have a weakness for bad reality TV and good sushi. And I was in a car accident 6 years ago that left me paralyzed from the waist down. She delivered this last piece of information matter-of-factly, watching for his reaction. James simply nodded, his expression thoughtful. Was anyone else hurt in the accident? He asked. The question caught her off guard. Most people either avoided the topic entirely or asked invasive questions about her physical limitations. No one had ever asked about the others involved. My boyfriend at the time was driving, she said after a moment. He walked away with a few scratches. We broke up while I was still in the hospital. He couldn't handle the new me, as he put it. Then he was a fool, James said, his voice quiet but firm. And you're better off without him. The conviction in his voice warmed something inside her that had been cold for a very long time. Their food arrived, and the conversation flowed more easily than Olivia would have thought possible. They discovered a shared love of classic films, a mutual dislike of cilantro, and a common addiction to crossword puzzles. James told her about the challenges of raising a daughter alone, and Olivia shared stories of her rehabilitation and how she had rebuilt her life after the accident. The hardest part wasn't the physical stuff, she admitted as they shared a dessert. It was accepting that people would always see the chair first and me second, if at all. James considered this. I think people see what they're looking for, he said finally. If they're looking for limitations, that's what they'll find. But if they're looking for strength, determination, intelligence. His eyes met hers across the table. That's what they'll see too. By the time they left the restaurant, something had shifted between them. What had begun as a cruel joke had somehow transformed into one of the most genuine connections Olivia had experienced in years. Can I drive you home? James asked as they stood outside the restaurant. Olivia hesitated. I usually take a rideshare. My apartment isn't exactly accessible friendly. I'd like to make sure you get home safely, he said. If that's okay with you. The sincerity in his voice made her nod. Okay. Thank you. James's car was a sleek black SUV with enough room for her wheelchair in the back. He helped her into the passenger seat with a respectful efficiency that told her this wasn't the first time he had assisted someone with mobility issues. My mother uses a wheelchair sometimes, he explained when she commented on this. Her arthritis flares up periodically. I've had some practice. As they drove through the city, Olivia directed him to her apartment building. It was in a modest neighborhood, nothing like the upscale area where she imagined James lived. This is me, she said as he pulled up to the curb. Thank you for dinner. And for not leaving when you found out the truth. James turned to face her, his expression serious. I'd like to see you again, Olivia. Properly this time. No jokes, no setups. Just dinner, or a movie, or whatever you'd enjoy. Olivia studied his face, looking for any sign that this was pity or, worse, some misguided attempt to prove something to himself. But all she saw was genuine interest. Why? She asked, the question that had been nagging at her all evening finally escaping. You.